Everybody, welcome back to the channel and some more Pillage here. So today we got another illustrative video here, just on covering again some of the basic concepts for the game. So we're going to look at just some very simple shooting here, and we have our handy Saxons ready to facilitate here. So we're just set up a couple of infantry guys here, geared for close combat, and our one lone archer out there. So we set them about 8 inches apart, so what would be considered short range for a bow. Now, all the normal shooting steps here, right? Assuming, hey, our archer is ready to go here. We have a bow. We're going to choose him as our shooter. We're going to choose our target. For now, we'll just say he's going to shoot at the Huskarl here. So just a guy with some armor for the purpose of the video. Then we would measure the distance. Normally, you don't get to pre-measure in Pillage, but again, just for the sake of the video, we're putting that out there already. We're going to check line of sight then, all the normal steps here. Again, this is pretty easy and obvious in this example. Everybody's out in the open to keep it simple. We'll declare the shot. We'll check the range. We know it is in range because we know we're got the measuring stick out, right? So super easy. And then there's no obstacles again here, so nothing's blocking line of sight. Nothing, the arrow's not going to get stuck anywhere. Cover is super important in Pillage, and just trying to obscure enemies' line of sight a little bit. Put something in between you and the shooter, ideally, just to maybe take a chance of the arrows going elsewhere. So then we would be looking at, well, what do we need to hit? And again, with Pillage, it's neat because it's just simple D6 rolls with some potential modifiers or target numbers that we're looking at. And going from there. So we're not at long range, so we're not going to take a penalty to the hit roll. If we were, in this case, more than 10 with a bow, bows have a 20-inch range, then we'd be at long range, harder to hit. And then looking at our opposition here, so we are looking at some armor on these guys, actually some armor here, some armor here and full armor here. So we're going to take our full armor dude and give him a break for just a second. We'll put our some armor guy in the line of fire here. And what do we need to hit for that? So again, assuming we didn't move or do anything else goofy here, just super simple rolls. Some armor means we would need a 5 up. Now, the cool thing with a bow is if you stood still, and this is where, factions that have easy access to bows as far as not paying overly much for those, actually will get to shoot twice. Pretty neat stuff. Slings can do it as well. Slings are always going to be really hard to land hits with, but also generally dirt cheap, so you can acquire more of those and just fish for 6s. Basically, you're just going to find a good spot to ideally park all your slingers, maybe a hill, get some extra range to make up for that little dip in range. Slings are only 15, and then just start focus firing on enemies, just roll for 6s. Hopefully you get some and get some casualties, right? To thin out the enemy. But we're going to take our bow here. And again, we're looking for some armor. We're just going to say, hey, we've declared our shots. We know we just want to shoot twice at this guy. He's our only opposition right now. We want to kill him. So we'll do some real rolls here and see if we land a hit. Well, 1 hit is scored, so that's pretty cool. Then our guy here would have an armor save available to him. Some armor again. He's wearing chain. No shield for this guy. So he's also got a 5 up. We'll roll. See if we can't kill him. Nope, he failed. Down he goes. So had we only had that one shot and it was would have been the miss, then that guy's very likely charging next turn and killing our poor archer. But yeah, so if we can park there, that's always pretty neat. So let's try it again, though, and we'll bring in our dude with a little bit more armor. So let's see if we can hit him first. Again, we're going to stand still. Oh, and we actually whiffed there. So full armor. Actually, no, we did not. Sorry. No, we did. Sorry. Looking at the wrong line on the chart here. So we're looking at crossbows, but no, the bow, fully armored, we need a 5 up. Had we been lucky enough to shoot somebody else with no armor, the bow, we just need 4s. Easy to do, right? So in that instance, we whiffed. We would have whiffed again. By this time, our poor archer is dead. But let's say magically we landed, 2 hits on this guy. Eventually, there we go. Hey, yay, we did it. The full armor guy's actually got a 4-up save, so even though he's got 1 wound, he's got a good chance of surviving that, right? So our armor that we pick, oops, did we get that in the frame there? Oh, so he would have actually survived had we hit him twice in that instance. So nonetheless, over time, and ideally, maybe a little bit more distance, right? We're actually a little closer than we'd ideally want. We're 8. He can go up to 10 and still be in short range. And ideally, get maybe a second chance of plinking away at the guy with the sword and shield and armor and all that. But yeah, most of these guys, unless they're heroes or the Viking berserkers, I think generally just have the one wound, and pretty simple process, right? So all in all, neat deal here. Now the other neat little trick though with bows, and if you can have multiple bows, is the fact that, again, with the bow shooting twice, you get the potential here to just take multiple shots. And so if we are faced with multiple opposition here, one bowman, lone bowman, if you're rolling hot, right, let's say if we're just going to divide our shots, ideally we'd probably want to, focus on one guy, make sure to hopefully land 2 hits and take him out. But the neat thing here is, let's say we're using the wrong dice here. Let's say we rolled though, and actually, we got these 2 guys charging us. We're going to just hope for the best. We're going to take one shot at each of them. And they both hit. Now, if this were real, he's got a 4-up save. He actually dies. The harder of the 2 targets. Watch the guy, though, with less armor make the save, because, that's just how it goes on camera, right? Yep, called it. So he'd survive. But theoretically, that one guy could have, knocked both of those guys out. It gets easier, of course, if we have more bowmen shooting and applying more pressure here, right? If we had 2 bowmen versus these 2 guys, each of them could be shooting twice, and drastically increasing our chances. But one bowman, right, can be a force multiplier. Same thing with a single slinger. Slings are going to be much harder to do damage with, though, or hit with, I should say, needing 6s pretty much no matter what the opposition's armed with. But again, slings are dirt cheap. You can imagine a little horde of slingers here. Maybe we don't have any for our Saxons that we built, but we could recreate that at some point. If we have like 5 or 6 slingers here, if they all stood still and shot twice, let's say 6 slingers, that's 3 shots, so 6 shots coming at each of these guys. We roll, ultimately 12 dice, and hopefully we're just, again, fishing for some 6s to hopefully just force these guys to take saves and ideally, thin the herd before they make it to us. So that gives you an idea on how basic shooting works. It gets fancier too. Now, if we can, get elevation for our missile troops, that actually increases their range by a good chunk, right? So if we're maybe getting on like some low hills, maybe like a little defensive tower or something like that, the missile troops can get quite deadly and really can get multiple turns of plinking away at guys like this before they ever make contact. And ideally, again, if they're in a defensive structure and elevated like that and they just stand still, there's really no reason to move, right? Unless we're desperately needing to get to an objective or do something like that. They, with enough shots and just good average dice rolls, you can really put the hurt on some people. So let me get this out of the way real quick. And again, just to show you guys, to illustrate here with the book, how some of the weapons break down for pillage and shooting. So the shooting to hit table here, slings, again, 15 inches. Don't discount them. Some factions get that stuff dirt cheap, and you still got to pay the 10 basic points for the guy, but there's really no point in giving armor to slingers and stuff like that, right? Just let them do their thing. They're disposable, cheap troops. They need 6s no matter what. Javelins, in the right faction, I think they work, right? Especially the ones where they get them cheaper. They're a very up-close and intimate weapon, so you got to hope that you get some hits, but they're hitting on 4s or 5s, right? There is no movement penalty for these 2. We should mention that, right? Worth considering for those weapons. Wouldn't make sense for a javelin, right? It's not that hard to move. So, but if you think too, depending on how much armor you have, so ideally, let's say like an unarmored guy typically moves 8, right? You're kind of extending the range of that javelin too to 14 potentially. So keep that in mind. Maybe even some elevation, right? Like you're hiding behind a hill, get up on the hill, throw the javelin. You might get some extra range there. The bow is just going to be your best all-rounder in most cases, though. A little bit of a penalty there. if you move, but again, if you can stand still, you're shooting twice. So slings and bows are the only weapons that do that. Pretty good chance of hitting an unarmored guy here. You see all that stuff. Now crossbows, not every faction gets those, but they're really powerful. Still 20-inch range, but when you hit, it's a -1 penalty to the opponent's defense roll. They hit unarmored guys on 3s, which is nasty. They can definitely thin that out in the opposition, but everything else sits on 4s too. So if you can keep them in not long range, you can do some serious work with that. And if you look again on unarmored guys, well, they're already saving on a 6. Some armor, 5 goes to a 6, and that 4 goes to a 5, even for a fully armored dude. So crossbows definitely can do work, but they're also freaking expensive in most cases. So hope that gives you a quick illustration, guys, on some of the basics there for shooting for Pillage. We'll be back with some close combat videos and more advanced stuff. But again, just covering some of the basics. Be sure to comment, like, and subscribe, and we'll be back with more Pillage.